Welcome to the Vision Driven Basketball Training Podcast. Appreciate you guys for tuning in today. I believe this is episode 34. Of course, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. Shout out to you guys listening right now, and obviously YouTube. Shout out to you guys. Make sure you guys drop a like, subscribe as well if you're new. Very special episode today. I have my guy, Quicksand Hoops, Gabe, with me today, and I'm really excited to get to talk to him today because there's a lot of stuff we're going to dive into that I think is going to help you guys. A lot of topics that I get asked very, very frequently that I feel like he's going to have a great approach to it as well. And like I always say when I have somebody on, this is only episode 2 of me having somebody on, I like having somebody just to kind of like be able to bounce ideas back and forth. A lot of times, like if I'm talking just myself, I like doing that, but it's also nice to have just the dynamic of another person in here, someone else who knows hoops as well. So really awesome to have that. So Gabe, I'll let you give a little intro of what you do. Of course, plug your stuff, and I'll have the links and stuff to everything that you do in the description, all that stuff as well. But just kind of let people know who you are, what you're all about, and what you do.
Yeah, so my name is Gabe. I'm from the Los Angeles area here in Cali, and from San Pedro. Born and raised here, and I'm a player development coach and a personal trainer. So the brand that I have is Quicksand Hoops. Quicksand is because I'm quick on my feet, quick thinking, and then Sandoval is my last name. So Quicksand is how we just combine that. And then the hoops is because hoops is in my blood, and I've been doing this since I was a baby, man, since I was like 3, and so basketball has always been there, and I just feel like we'll dive into it, but I started training in like 2017. I just decided to do my own thing and start the business. And so, my dad's been helping me, my family's been helping me just backing it. And that's how it is right there.
Yeah, it's awesome. So that's actually kind of where I want to start. Like, what was your journey to getting into training? How did your kind of take us through high school for you, post high school, like your journey, because it's always cool to hear people's stories. Like I think my story is kind of unique. A lot of trainers I know, like they get into a lot of unique situations with it leads to them getting into training. So kind of let me know what took you to where you are now.
Right. So just playing ball my whole life, as I said, and really growing up just playing travel ball, playing different AAUs, and then going to high school, it was up in the air where I was gonna go. So I'm from the LA area, and my parents didn't want me to go to San Pedro High School. So this is like down the street from where we live. They wanted me to go to a school in Long Beach. And so I went to Cabrillo High School in Long Beach on the west side of Long Beach. And, I was already nervous to go there because it was a whole new scenery for me. But, I met a lot of really good people. And, for me, going into that freshman year of high school, I wasn't even going to try out for the team. I was just kind of nervous. I was just a small Hispanic kid. I'm the same height really. I'm like 5'4". So I was like maybe like 5'2", and I was just going in there like, damn, I'm undersized. I don't look the part, but I've been doing this my whole life, so I know I have it in me. And so, just starting, I went to the tryout. I ended up making the team, and then from there, my life just changed in the best way possible. Met a bunch of really cool cats, had really good coaches that taught me the fundamentals even more so than I was learning, back home with Pops and, the coaches I had here. So high school went pretty well in the beginning. I played 9th, 10th, and 11th grade, but I just played JV. I played freshman year, 9th grade, and then I played JV the last 2 years. And then I opted out of my senior year. I didn't feel like playing really. And this is what it came down to. I don't know if I was going to fit into the team's, the chemistry and stuff like that. So I kind of just went my own way. I just wanted to just work on me, work on my game. So for that, my senior year, I ended up just after 6th period, that's when basketball would happen. I would just go straight to the YMCA where I was from, down the street in San Pedro, and then I would just work on my game there. And so I think that put me in the right position to be able to have that mentality of, okay, I know what I need to work on to be able to, just continue playing the game of basketball and eventually coaching it.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's Yeah, that's actually a really interesting story too, and I think we'll get into some of the points that you made right there. But I kind of want to talk about a question that I've gotten a little bit, and I answered this in a podcast I think 2 or 3 weeks ago, but I kind of want to hear your take on it as well. I had somebody ask me about how my development goes now, because like obviously you and I both, like I'm sure you're still out getting shots up and doing all that stuff just because like you love to play
Mm-hmm.
basketball, so that's just what you do. And I'm the same way. Like if I'm not
Of
in the
course.
gym training, like I'm still trying to be as good as I can. So at least when I go pick up with guys who I know are better than
Yeah.
me, like I'm gonna be able to compete. Like that's always
Right.
my thing. Is I don't want to let myself fall off just because I'm not playing competitively right now. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so for you, at least for me, my development now, partially because of knowledge, but partially just because of the amount of time I put into it, I feel like I develop at a much better rate now because I kind of have a baseline that I've built. So at least compared to when I was in high school, for sure. So is that kind of your experience as well? And what do you kind of do, just yourself now? Because I actually saw some of your clips of you playing, I
Mm-hmm.
think it was a men's league. Um, which
Yeah,
is awesome, by the way. Like, I need to find a men's league in my area because like
for sure. It's
I really
great.
want to be playing competitively aside from just pickup and
Mm-hmm.
stuff. But how does you how would you say your development is now as compared to when you were in high school?
So just as you said it, it's a little easier now to develop, and I think the main reason is because I've already built the foundation. So I feel like I have the basics down, but now I also have the control of my body, the strength, and just like you said, the knowledge and the studying. And so now I can put it all together and I can sit and kind of assess. So say for example, I played, in the pickup and that game I wasn't shooting well. I can kind of dissect in the film because my pops records every game, um, just so I can have that content. And so I dissect the film and I'm like, okay, my body was off. I need to work on that balance. So then I'll go and attack balance that night on, in the driveway or the next morning or whatever the case is. Or if I need, to my 3-pointer was off, so I need to get to the mid range. But then I've been struggling on one dribble pull ups, so now I know I need to go one dribble pull ups and just rep it out the entire session when I get in here and get these shots up. But also too, I mean, what changed my life really was Dr. Dish and the shooting machine that I have. That just it's just night and day. Like the amount of shots that I'm able to get up is ridiculous for myself and for clients. So knowing that I can have that, it just motivates me to be able to be like, you know what, I have no excuse. Let's just rep these out. Let's rep these floaters out, these runners. Um, so just I kind of have a feel for what I need to work on, and then I just attack it for sure.
Yeah. No, that Dr. Dish, dude, that's my next purchase after I get my new car. Then that's
Yeah,
Dr. Dish right after that because that I think is such a game changer. If you don't have like
absolutely.
a consistent person to rebound for you, there's a lot of stuff you can do without a rebounder. But I think when it comes to just straight up getting reps up, like
Yep.
that's such a great advantage to have. I think another thing to go back to your point about high school. I think one of the things that I really like about hearing stories of like guys who have kind of unorthodox paths. I think when I was in high school, I graduated high school. How old are you now?
26.
26. Okay, so I'm about to turn 21. When I graduated 3 years ago almost, and
Mm-hmm.
my thought on it, because like just a little bit of my backstory, I was gonna play college basketball at a Division III school. That ended up not happening, so I took a year off and was training that entire year to be able to play the next year. And I had a
Right.
few looks from some JUCOs, some other D3s, ended up falling through again. And at that point, I was like, basically my plan was I'm going to go play college basketball for at least 1 year because then I feel like I'm going to have some sort of credibility, right? That was my
Yep.
thing. I just I wanted the credit because I felt like, oh, if you don't play in college, like how are you going to be able to be a trainer, right? Because I always knew that's what I wanted to do. Like when I was
Yeah.
growing up, my favorite thing was always like, listen, we're at the end of the season, like aside from maybe junior senior year because of the playoffs, like I was invested in that, but like sophomore year through like middle school, it was like I couldn't wait till February and like the season was over because then I would just get to go train. Like that was what I like
Yep.
to do. So it was my favorite time of the year because I literally remember, I think it was like my 8th grade year, bus ride home. I'm writing out literally like my workout schedule for the next, 6 months. Like that was
Yeah.
my thing. So
Right.
I know I wanted to do that. And, but I always felt like, oh, you have to, play at a certain level and earn credibility because of how good you are. And then after I ended up not doing that, I had a couple parents from a team that I was coaching reach out and ask if I could start working with their kids. And then I
Mm-hmm.
started to see their progress. And I was like, well, at the end of the day, and actually, I gotta give a shout out here to By Any Means Basketball. I'm sure you know who
Yeah.
Coleman. Yeah, so
Yep.
he
Yep.
actually was another guy who I saw before I started all this stuff, and I know I saw he didn't play in college. I was like, okay, well, if he's able to do this, like, then I can also be able to help players. And that was really what it comes down to. Like, can you help somebody? Like, are you able
Of
to
course.
help a player? Because I know a ton of former D1 players who just are, first of all, they're terrible at actually coaching, like team coaching. Like, they don't have any sort of, their thing is like, oh, they were better than everybody growing up in high school. So like things
Yeah.
came easy to them. So if a player isn't that, they can't relate to them at all. So
Yep.
it's at the high school level, it's just not good. But then even like sometimes training, like they don't know what they're doing with that either because they haven't had to work it. They're like, oh, I play D1, so that's why you should work with me. But it's like, can you actually
Mm-hmm.
get them results? And so now, like, I understand that's actually how it works. So that's why I love hearing stories like yours as well. Um, would you say so? When it comes to that, um, how would you say kind of your approach and your outlook has been because of just how you can relate to players now? I feel like that's a big thing
Yeah.
for you.
So I think if I touch back on what you said about By Any Means training, was that I started wanting to train. So straight out of high school, I went to Cal State Long Beach. It was a university, and I knew that I wasn't going to play there. I didn't have any thought of trying to play there, but I knew they had a rec center, and so they had 3 courts just lined up, and there's a bunch of hoopers there all the time. And so there is where I got to work on just the skills and kind of just showcase myself and tell myself that I still got it. And so there is where I think my third year in there, my junior year, is where I started getting more interested in the actual training part of it and actually lifting the weights and then working more on the skill side. Because at that point, I was looking at 10,000 hours, Devin Williams.
Of
I was
course.
looking at DJ Sackmann. And those two kind of just shaped my mind into like, wow, they can do it, I can do it, right? And DJ Sackmann, I feel like I look like him, so I'm like, he can do it, I can do it. He's
No,
fitting
you
in
guys
this
you
in
guys
this
talk the
world.
same too. Like, you guys have like a similar kind of like
Yeah,
delivery. Yeah.
you're right. And so I'm just like, and I actually met him too. That's a funny story. I can get into that, but
Yeah.
so as far as that, so those are the inspirations that I had, and I'm like, I have the skill set, and I can teach. I feel like I have the ability to be able to teach and get my point across, and actually, assess what a player is doing and how to fix it and stuff. So I had that in my head the entire time, um, and that started off also with my dad. Growing up, just being in the gym every single day and just working, right? And so learning those skills. And so if I keep, I knew that I wanted to go in that path. And so from there, the coaching became really easy because I know, like I just said, if I see that a player, for example, is in the gym by himself and I'm noticing, I just kind of scope out the comp. I always try to see what's happening. And if I see that a kid is, struggling on a shot, maybe he needs a little bit more lift, I go over there, hey, what's up, man? Just have a real conversation with them. And then just break down the basics. Hey, maybe you should start slow. You're shooting threes right now. How about you scoot a little bit closer? And get underneath the rim and get some form shots. And then from there, they're like, wow, yeah, I didn't even think about that. And so those are just those tiny nuances that you just pick up, throughout the years from different people. So being able to relate is something that I can do for sure. And I think it's being personable and being able to hold a conversation and talk to people is where I'm able to get into their head and actually help them for sure.
Yeah, yeah, it's powerful, man, for sure. That ability to do that, because a lot of people just don't have it, and I feel like if you do, 'cause to me, it's more about like what you bring to to a player in terms of just like your knowledge or your drills that you do. It's I think it's even deeper than that. You had actually DM me about a week ago, I think, talking about just asking about like my program and all that stuff, and that's really what
Mm-hmm.
that was kind of my answer to you is like I feel like it has to be more than just like drills and workouts and stuff. There's so much that goes into being a great player. And I think you have to be able to touch on all that stuff as well. So the mental side of things, and we'll get into a lot of that stuff too, because I really, really like your quicksand mindset stories that you do every day. I think that's awesome.
Yeah, I
And
appreciate that.
yeah, yeah, and we'll hop into that. But so what was your, because you mentioned this, what was your experience meeting DJ Sackmann?
Yeah, so I was working at the YMCA. I worked there for 3 years, and there was a coach there. His name is Frank, Coach Frank, and he'd been working there for a long time, and I was always on his travel ball teams and stuff like that. And he had connections with Micah Lancaster in Impossible Training. And it was at the time where DJ Sackmann was still underneath, Micah Lancaster. I know they're still working together, but he was still in development. He was like a new guy on the scene, and they showed up to do a camp to be able to have some tryouts for trainers. So at this point, I'm a 15-year-old, 16-year-old kid, and I didn't know who they were, and I was like, all right, well, I'll be a part of the camp. And then I got to learn some stuff from Michael Lancaster, and I thought that I knew a good amount, and then he was just kind of breaking it down, use me as examples. So, all right, come out here and you show us. And then I did it wrong, and he was just like, okay, let's work on this, right? So that mindset was engraved in me. And then after, I guess after that moment, right, it was maybe like on a Friday, DJ still had like a 3-day pass, and so I was still going to the gym every day. And then the next morning, I was there by myself shooting, and then he walks in, and he's doing his drills on the side, and he's doing some 2-ball between the leg off the wall, like on some crazy stuff. And I'm like, dang, like and he was like, hey, come over here real quick, record this. And I recorded a clip for him, and I don't know if he remembers that, but I do. And we chatted up a little bit, and then kind of just went on our way. And then man, I don't know when it was. It was recently, maybe like a year or two ago. I DM'd him, and I kind of commented on something, and we went back and forth in the DMs. So that was kind of cool. But yeah, it was a good moment, meeting him and Micah Lancaster for sure.
So what's your you got to kind of experience working with Michael Lancaster in person. What is that like? Because I would say like his style of training is very unorthodox, and really there's nobody that I see who's really like him in terms of just kind of the stuff that he does with like he helps do stuff with cones and like with like the heavy balls and like the I know I've seen him do stuff with like boxes and stuff like that. Like
Right.
is that the type of stuff
The
that you guys
mat.
were doing there? Yeah, the mat, of course. Like is that the type of stuff you guys are doing?
Yeah, so he pretty much, I think that whole day was all about accountability of getting low. And that was around the first time where they had the rip cones, those red cones with the grip on them.
Mm-hmm.
And he was basically, he had the cone away, he had it in his hand. He's like, all right, just show me how you would attack the rim. And then I attacked the rim, but he was like, okay, well, how about you do it this time with the cone now, touch the cone. And I went down, did a between the leg move, touched the cone. And he's like, pause right there. You see the difference is now your shoulders getting lower to the floor, and you're more around hip level to me defensively if I'm on defense. And then it just kind of clicked in my head. I'm like, yeah, that makes a ton of sense.
Yeah.
And it was like, okay, now grab the cone and pick it up, right? And so now you have the accountability of getting close to the ground, picking it up, laying it up, and it kind of makes you think about multiple facets of the game as you're training. And then when you get to the game, I feel like it does definitely translate for sure.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's definitely a good point as well with like the cones getting low, because I've seen a lot of his stuff, but it's like it's interesting to hear from someone's perspective who's actually like been in the gym with him, like how he implements this stuff. I think it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So kind of to pivot off that, I want to talk about your game personally, your experiences. Because you being undersized, that provides a whole nother level of difficulty to a game that I already think is the most difficult game because of just the athletic piece of it, but also mixed with skills. Like I think, in my opinion, the best athletes in the world are the NBA guys, because you have to be incredibly as an athlete. Like football guys are probably the best pure athletes, but basketball,
Right.
you have to have that sort of athleticism, and you've got to be skilled too, and it's a lot of IQ that goes into it as well. So I think that combination makes the sport so unique. And like honestly, I would say the question or the topic that players bring up to me just through DMs comments the most is about like how they're going to be able to thrive being undersized. Like that's probably number one, honestly. So again, that's
Right.
why I think you being on here is a great sort of is a great thing, because you can relate to that as well. So for you, like what would you say your approach is as an undersized guy? Your like the skills you feel like that you need to have as an undersized player, the IQ side of it, maybe players that you might watch, mindset, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. So I think the skill part of it, ball handling is definitely being able to handle the rock is crazy important. But aside from that, you need to have elite footwork. I think that I have really good footwork, and it's something that just started early, right? Just having the basketball in my hand and then playing around with it, dribbling, freestyling, like growing up, just always having the ball in my hand. That helped a ton because now I'm able to change directions really well, to be able to accelerate and decelerate, and these things are stuff that can be counted out that you don't really think about working on without the basketball, yet alone with the basketball. And so being able to change direction, cuts, speed. I'm just a lot. I'm a lot quicker than a lot of people, and uh, that's what gets me to where I want to go. And it wasn't until I got older that I realized that I need to change pace, because I used to just be zoom, just like
Mm-hmm.
quick. No one can stop me. I was just going right. But then there was a lot of people growing up as I got older that they're just as quick, but they can't decelerate like I can. So now I'm like, okay, let me play slow. So then this is where you start looking at the Westbrooks, looking at the Iversons, and looking at how they're changing pace. Bone Collector is another one, the street ball legend,
Yep.
the professor, by going slow and then taking off quick. So being able to use your quickness and speed, if you have it, to be able to blow by bigger defenders, smaller defenders, and that type of stuff. Now working on that, we talked about, we're going to touch on this later, is that the weight room, right? So working on the footwork without the basketball, working on acceleration, deceleration in multi directions, right? You need to be able to work in all different planes. You need to be able to jump and turn around and sprint, then backpedal and go shuffling to the side. Like all that kind of footwork is extremely important. And so I feel like I have it naturally, but a lot of players don't. And so when they do ask in the DMs like that, I'm like, well, this is what you need to do. And now it's just like a matter of putting that work in. But undersized, I feel like it works in my advantage,
Yeah.
because every time I go into the gym, no matter where it is, I feel all the eyes are on me to be able to perform, because they look at me and they're like, oh, he's not gonna be able to hoop, or he's a small dude and he doesn't look like he's gonna be able to do what he does. And then you have to be able to turn it on. I just have it. And just growing up, it is playing with bigger dudes, playing with more athletic guys. I was in those situations where I need to be able to thrive, and those experiences helped me a ton.
Yeah.
So now when I get there, I'm like, all right, I need to prove myself in this situation, and then I'm just gonna attack it, and then they're gonna see how I play, and then I feel like I'm unpredictable, to be honest. I
Mm-hmm.
have a lot to my game for sure.
Yeah. 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 No, a couple of things there. Like I think what you just talked about at the end right there, when you're undersized, or really take anything in basketball, like maybe you're not the quick, maybe someone who's not quick, right? Someone who doesn't have your quickness. That there's certainly, like, you have to find ways to overcome that. So I feel like for players like that growing up, where you might have to compensate for something, um, that actually benefits you long term, because you have to learn how to work to be able to overcome that. That's kind of going back to my point I made earlier. A lot
Mm-hmm.
of the high level players that I know who are in the whole sort of training thing, like locally, a lot of them, not a lot, but a couple of them that I've worked with, just it really seems to me, it's like, okay, when you were in high school, like, you were bigger than everybody, and because of that, like, you got to where you got to. I'm not saying you didn't work at it, but I'm saying you didn't have to work like the guy who wasn't bigger than everybody, who wasn't the best athlete. Like, they had to work differently. So their approach, their ability to relate to players is going to be completely different than it will be for you. Not to say that you can't overcome that, but if you don't consciously understand that, then it's
Mm-hmm.
gonna be a struggle for you. So I think one thing that I've been talking about recently is, like, being able to kind of flip the script. I had a podcast last week talking about working on the cold, and you're LA, so you don't have to worry about that quite as much as, like, I'm in Pennsylvania, so, like, we got all four seasons,
Yeah.
and it's probably like 25 degrees out right now, but we have like, I get that question all the time. It's like, it's cold out, like, it's snowing, like, what am I supposed to do? And my thought is, like, now we have to be able to take, you know, it's not going to be perfect all the time, right? It's not going to be ideal every single time. And if you're still able to overcome that, then when, you and another player who doesn't have to deal with, imperfect situations, you guys get into a position where all of a sudden something goes wrong, right? You guys are both in the season and you guys both get hit with something. Maybe that bounces right off you because you're used to having to overcome things. But that player who
Right.
maybe doesn't have to, that might derail him. Like that might derail his whole season, or it might take him 2-3 weeks to overcome something like that. Whereas the player who's kind of built that mental toughness over a long period of time, that's something that they're going to be able to kind of naturally do because they've experienced it before. So that's kind of one thing. And honestly, I'm glad that you brought that up. I think the other big thing too right there is playing with pace is so big. It's like when I watch guys who are even guys who aren't undersized, like the best guards period are just, they're so good at being unpredictable. Like you said, like you're unpredictable. That's really one of the biggest things. Like when I'm watching like Trae Young is so good at changing pace because he's not like he's undersized for the NBA. He's not like a crazy athlete. He's a good athlete, but he's not crazy. Like he's not playing above the rim or anything like that.
Right.
And honestly, compared to a lot of guys who guard him, he probably isn't that much quicker than them. But he's so good at going from slow to fast, so like just being unpredictable that guys can't stay in front of him. I actually did the video I just dropped today was about handling pressure, and Trae Young was a guy that I was watching because I watched his game in 2018 when he was at Oklahoma. They were playing against West Virginia, and West Virginia was really good that year. Pressed Virginia. So they're pressing. They had Javon Carter, who plays with the Suns now. He was their guy and really, really good defender. And so basically Trae Young was getting full court, 94 feet the whole entire game. Like he was being fronted. They were not giving him the ball. And he's got one of the best defenders in the country on him the whole time. And the reason he was able to thrive in the situation still, I think they lost the game, but honestly, he didn't play all that well. But like I was really watching him play full court and handle pressure. And he did that easily because he changed his pace. And as good a defender and as great an athlete as Javon Carter is, if you don't know what the offensive guy is going to do, he's going to have a split second on you when he decides to speed up. Like you're going to have to catch up to him, and he's going to slow down, and you're going to have to slow down late, and then he's just going to go again. So it's like you can kind of just play with your guy if you kind of understand that part of the game. So change of pace is such a big deal. And whenever I talk about ball handling, that's really point number 2. I talk about ball control. Like you got to be able to control the ball, because if you can't control it, then it doesn't really matter if you can change pace because you're going to lose the ball. But then after that, I'm like, then we got to be able to change pace, because that's how you become hard to guard. And at that point, it's not even really about how big or small you are. It's like you have the advantage over your defender every single time, because he doesn't know what you're going to do when you do. So that's definitely a big thing for me. And you also touched on it, the weight room. And also, something that I like is you're in your weight room right now. It's pretty awesome. So just real quick, like what's your home gym setup like? That's at your house, at your house?
Real quick, do you mind if we tap back a little bit for that? Because that's something that came into my head.
Oh, go for it. Yeah, of course.
I think it'd be beneficial. So I think, and I'll get back to the weight room.
Yeah, go for it.
So also as an undersized guard, what I learned playing in Long Beach. So in Long Beach, they have Pauly, Jordan, Compton, Milliken, Wilson. So it's a really good competition all throughout. And so what I learned was that I needed to develop a unique shot, something that was going to be able to set me apart and be able to get over the big guys. And so it was right around the time, 2009 is when I got into high school. And so that was right around the time that Rondo was killing. Rondo was on Boston. He was hitting floaters and runners. And I was like, I can do that. Like, I feel like he was thriving at a high level. And then before him, Tony Parker and Chris Paul getting those floaters in. And then I'm like, I told my dad, let's study this to see how the footwork is happening. And let's just go rep this out. And then I just repped it out for a whole summer. Runners, 1 foot runners, 2 foot runners, off foot like Steve Nash, just different types of finishes around the rim like that. And that just set me apart from a lot of people because I was able to use my quickness to be able to get into the teeth of the defense. And then from there, I can dissect. I can go up for the runner. And I can pump fake and go down low now, right? So that gave me the option and just opened up my game a ton. And then as I developed on that, then I started to be able to shoot threes when I got stronger. And then that just opened up everything, because now you can't leave me open for three because I'm hitting that. I can pump fake, get to the middle, floater. I can dime, right? And so that is really important. And later in life, I ended up learning that the mid-range the mid-range is probably my new favorite shot.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the Jordan Kobe mid range, Iverson mid range, Chris Paul mid range. So that type of stuff will set you apart. So get into the teeth of the defense and have a way to finish for sure.
Yeah, that's
And then I can get back to the weight room. But
well, actually, it's funny. I told you like this is gonna be like just so free flowing because now you brought that up. That's gonna get me another point too. So there's a kid that I work with who is really undersized but really good. And I think the most unique part of his game and the reason he's so difficult to stop is first of all, lights out shooter, super quick, and has a great touch around the rim. So can finish floaters either hand, 1 foot, 2 foot, doesn't matter. So like literally, if you go out and guard him, he's so quick he's gonna get by you. And then if a guy steps up, he's gonna hit the floater over him. If you play off him, he'll shoot the three. He's gonna hit it. So it doesn't even matter at this point. He's like he has that stuff down, and it's so hard for people to stop him now. And I think one of the things too with that is like you talked about. Okay, I developed my three. Now I know that people have to play that, so I can go pump fake and then I can get to into the paint, or I can pull up in the mid range. I think that's a big part too, developing your IQ when you're like, okay, I know I can shoot the three now. So it's like, what's my next step? Okay, so my next step is if I see my guy closing out on me because he knows I can hit the shot. Now I'm a pump fake and score off that. Like basketball is really simple. I think we see a ton of highlights where we talk about Trae Young. The highlights we see of Trae Young are him hitting 35 footers and hitting these crazy shots. Steph Curry hitting these crazy shots. Really any player you want to think of, but the majority of basketball is just simple plays. And, hitting an open catch and shoot three, pump fake, that guy goes by you, you pull up or you get into the paint and finish. That's what basketball really is. Like the majority of time, probably 85% of the points that you score are going to be relatively routine things. So getting really good at those routine things, saying, I can hit the catch and shoot three. I have a pump fake that I know I can sell, and then I can hit that mid range pull up, or I can go floater off that as well. Like that, I think is such a big key.
Valuable.
Yeah. So anyway, back to your weight room. Kind of take me through like what that's like. Cause I think that's really, especially now with the pandemic and all that stuff. Like that's such a big thing for you to have.
Yes. So we started, so the personal training thing is the reason why we even started this at all. So the garage had a bunch of just this old stuff in here, a desk, and it was just a mess in here, right? And my grandpa would be in here all the time. This is his man cave. And then, we talked to him about it and we're just like, hey, I think it's best if we just clear it out and we make a gym that we can have a good amount of space and use it for the better good, right? And so from that point, we just started clearing everything out, and I was working at the same time. I was working on getting my certification through NASM to be a personal trainer. And from there, as I'm working on that, we're clearing all this stuff out. We started purchasing equipment. We knew that immediately we're going to get some Rogue equipment. So Rogue is one of the best on the market for the power racks and for their bars. And so that was one of the first purchases. You can see here, these things are US made. They're going to last forever, a lifetime. And then the bars as well, the Ohio power bars. So those two things, we knew that those are going to be the main pieces of equipment. And then from there, you just go on Craigslist, get some weights here, get some weights there. And then all of a sudden you have a gym, right? And then you have the mats that are on the floor. And then it was really private initially. Like I had my certification, but I just didn't know how to reach out to people on personal training basis. And so it was more just like our gym that we just worked out in. And then the pandemic hits, and a little bit before the pandemic, I had a little bit of group sessions here and there, but it was nothing. But then the pandemic hit, and I didn't train from March until like April, May, until like May, June, right around that area. I finally had a client, and then I started taking more clients, and then I grew from there.
Yeah.
But I mean, we have a treadmill here. We have 2 bikes. We have 2 power bars, a power rack. We have all the weight plates from 45s, 35s, 10s, 5s, dumbbells. I'm looking around. I mean, we have a good amount of stuff to get a really good workout in. So, the workouts happen pretty much every day, Monday through Sunday, really, Sunday through Sunday. Yeah.
Yeah. That's awesome. So what would you say, for you personally, for the players you work with, what are some of the biggest keys that you work on, that you look at, you target when you have yourself or one of your clients in the weight room with you?
Hmm. So I have more at the moment. I have 3 basketball clients, and I have 5 personal training clients that don't even touch basketball at all. So with the 3 basketball ones, we're definitely working on a lot of footwork, because understand that they don't have not everyone has that footwork, that natural ability to be able to move like that. And so definitely footwork. So we're working on a lot of ladder stuff. We're working on a lot of body weights, understanding how to move. I think that's important. I think a lot of basketball players, they're not they're not they're not great at moving, being able to move, being able to squat with proper form, being able to have the mechanics of their posture, being straight on certain movements. So usually they touch the weights and then they end up getting injured, or they go through it without really having the understanding of it. So I like to start off with the base. So working on the feet, working on the ankles, working on band movements to be able to, get those joints moving in different directions. And then, work on single leg stuff, right? Work on balance. So these things are all important on building the base. And then eventually, once you feel like they're ready and they look strong when they're standing, and when they're on the court, they're on balance. Then you can start adding in the weights. In my opinion, obviously there's different approaches, and you can add weight sooner. But this is what I kind of been doing, and I feel like it's been working.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's such a great point too. There's another guy that I follow, PGF Performance. I don't know if you know him as well. Okay, yeah, he's one
Yep.
of the big guys in that sort of space. And that's
Hmm.
kind of what he promotes too. Is like, he has his like body weight stuff that he does, where it's like that's where he starts off. Where it's like a lot of guys, like, they go straight to the weights, but there's a lot of stuff you can do to maximize your athletic ability without that. Like, there's a lot of stuff that you can hit, a lot of movements that might seem really, really basic, but
Hmm.
players just aren't, especially a lot of basketball players, because a lot of times super tall, long legs, like, guys aren't really like flexible at all. They aren't mobile, I should say. Like, there's a lot of stuff that guys need to hit, that they don't, because it might be difficult. And so they see, like, okay, I'll just go squat, but it's like the way that you're squatting, first of all, might not be good for you. But also it might just be that you're not really maximizing what you could be doing in the weight room, just because you're not
Hmm.
hitting those basics. So I think, and like you just said, the basics are such a big thing. I think a lot of players just kind of gloss over.
I agree.
Yeah.
And I think even more so for just the personal training clients as well. If a client's trying to lose weight or they're trying to gain some strength, I always put them through basic warm-ups, basic stretches, and being able to attack balance. I think balance is extremely important, because, like you said, they want to hop on to the more difficult barbell movements, some barbell deadlifts, some barbell rows, some barbell squats, but their form and their ability to breathe and being able to move their spine in a certain direction and being able to maintain that posture is not great yet, right? And so I've had clients that are like, you can see it in their face, like, I don't want to do this, but this is super valuable. That's going to help you get to that point of lifting heavier weight or losing the weight that you wanted to lose, right? And so um, definitely, I even for myself, I still try to work on those basic fundamentals
Yeah.
when
Yeah.
possible. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. So do you have, with those guys that you train, those basketball players, do you have
Hmm.
guys that you work with, like, in the weight room and on the court?
Yeah, so I have two, basically three of them. One of them is really into the weights, and I need to get more on him with it. He just actually got his cast off,
Okay.
and so we're definitely going to start attacking the weights a little bit more, get him stronger, because he's going into high school. The other one, Mateo. So Joshua was the one that got the cast off.
Mm,
Mateo is he's already doing weights with his mom and his family there, and so when he gets here, we're just working on footwork. We're working on just basic mechanics like that, right? Speed, agility, and ball handling and stuff. So we're in and out of the weight room constantly. The garage door is always open. So
mm,
we come in here, all right, let's go outside now, let's get some shots. Let's come back in and get some ball handling.
yeah.
Um, and so definitely, for sure, I always try to touch different athletic movements, different explosion movements, power output. and all that type of stuff, jumping mechanics, because everyone wants to jump high. And so, but it's all about mechanics,
Yeah.
And it's if we're not touching down on those mechanics, then you can't grow that on that side of it. So
Exactly. And I think part of that too is like learning. So, guys want to jump higher, but you also have to learn how to jump in the context of an actual game. So if your mechanics aren't thought of, like you might be able to jump high, but basketball, you have to be able to jump high coming off different angles, different speeds. And of course, there's a ball in play, other people around you. So that's, again, where it goes back to basics, where like jump mechanics might seem like, why am I doing this? But it's like, that's so important because basketball, like you have to be able to move like a basketball player. It's not just like, oh, we're going to go out, we're going to squat as much weight as possible, and then we'll be cool, right? Some players who might have naturally be crazy quick, but maybe they lack some strength. Maybe for them, like that takes them to a whole new level. But for a lot of players, it's more basic than that. I think. I think that's a good point you touched on. But that was gonna be my question to you. It's like you're kind of how you interact the weight room and the court, where it's like, okay, we're gonna go and we're gonna work on this footwork, these explosive movements, and then we're able to kind of transfer that over to what we're doing on the basketball court.
Yeah, so basically, like with that too, I started actually PJF Performance, Paul Favors. Um, he posted something about how to structure a workout for an athlete that's doing basketball and weights, and he
I
was
saw that
saying
video.
that So I think he was talking about finish your cardio outside, finish the conditioning, and finish the skill work first, and then hop into the weights after. So that way, you're able to you don't have to worry about your shot being off. If you're lifting the weights before and then you go out there, your shots are off, right? There's a different learning curve to that.
Yeah.
Actually, I prefer that more. Like in my own training, I like to lift and then go out there if I can and then shoot, just because it feels different and then you adjust to it. But as a younger athlete, it's probably it was frustrating trying to do that. It's like, wow, my shot's off, the ball feels weird, like what's happening. So, in that video, he broke down just work on the skill stuff first, if it's shooting, and then come in here and get those weights, upper body, lower body. And really all you really need to do is you need to work on a lot of vertical pulls, horizontal pulls, horizontal pushes, and then vertical pushes, right? And so there's different styles, and this is a ton of movements that you can look up on your own, or you can just follow people like Paul, or like yourself. We're just looking at different people and learning from them.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great point that you made, because I don't know. I was a part of, I forget what it's called with PGF. I think it's called Edge U or something like that.
Okay.
He's like this thing basically that has a lot of stuff. And I was in it for a little bit, where he that was where I saw that video where he kind of broke down that whole sort of thing. But like you said, I think it also depends on like, you personally, what feels better for you. Is it, hitting the weight room first and then hitting the court, or going core weight room? I think for me, I'd rather go core weight room, but I also think it depends on what sort of lifts I'm doing that day. So or what exercise I should say. But I think it can all kind of depend. But that's kind of leads me to our next point, which is like when we talk about basketball. So we talk about the basketball workouts, and we talked about this in our DMs as well. What's your kind of your philosophy, your approach to how you structure your workouts, or you can even say like how you structure your player development. So if you have a kid and you're working with him for a few months, like, what how do you start that off, and then ultimately, like, how do you progress that player forward?
Right. So I like to look at what they're strong at, and what they already have developed, and then I like to just attack that and make that elite. So if they're great at it, I want to make it even better. So that way, you can have something where you're just elite at, and then you can start working on maybe the opposite hand, and then develop that side of it. Because I think that growing up, when I was doing both of them, I was trying to work on my left and my right and work on different moves. It was I wasn't growing as much as I could have, right? If I would have just I worked on shooting constantly and just mastered that, and then move on to the next, right? I think one to two skills at a time, throughout a few months period is more beneficial, in my opinion, than trying to attack a lot of different skills at the same time on the court. So, with Joshua, for example, especially after he's a lefty and he broke a bone in his left hand, right? And so before that, we were working on a lot of shooting, and he's getting stronger now, so he's getting that opposite hand off, and it's not inflicting anymore. He wasn't doing any thumb flicks, and so we mastered the basics on that. And then he broke his hand, and it's like, damn, all right, so how can we attack this? How can we approach this? Well, your right hand needs to be as good as your left was. Now we have the opportunity to work on that. And so we just did basic ball handling. We did some wind shields. We did this reps and a bunch of different manipulations, right? I saw a video that you have, right? So I get on the dribble bridge. There's I don't know if you've seen the dribble bridge. It's kind of like you have two cones and you have a PVC pipe. Yeah. And so you can do different type of movements to hold you accountable for staying low. And we're just doing a bunch of, just repetitions on that, working on dribbling and then attacking, different finishes at the rim, a floater, underhand like Curry, a right hand layup, reverse layup with the right. And so just different styles of the same kind of movement.
Yeah.
And just getting him to where he's just as good or even better when he comes back, from that cast being off.
Right.
And so, but like, we talked about in the DM, you for example, we're doing punches on the right wing, right? So you start off, we're attacking, let's attack and get a punch and then pull up. Let's attack, get a punch, and then between pull up. Let's get a punch and then attack him, go for a lay. Just different styles of the same move throughout the whole session.
Yeah.
Right? You don't even have to go to that left side throughout the whole session. You can do an X session.
Exactly.
But just focus on that one side. The Kobe mentality, that Mamba mentality, is doing the same move for hours. I mean, it'll take you a long way.
Yeah, exactly. And that was the point I was gonna make, is like, if I'm working with the player, and there'll be times where like, there's one guy I work with, and I remember when we started, it was like we just worked layups. We worked layups for like probably the first 2 weeks. Like I don't think we shot outside the paint one time the first 2 weeks we were there. It was all layups and like building form. And at this point, that was probably, that would have been almost 2 years ago. I think like next month would be 2 years. And at this point, we're shooting threes. We're working on different moves. We're going step backs, punches, more advanced sort of stuff. But that's 2 years of progress right there. We started, it was like real focus on basic stuff, and we built that foundation. And then now like the progress is that's what we talked about earlier. Like you got to build that baseline first, and then progression becomes a lot easier. And that was what we're seeing now. Like that's the payoff we see now, is like things get picked up much, much quicker because we spent the time doing the stuff that was not fun. For me as a trainer, like no one wants to just, do layups for, months at a time, but it's like, we got to get that stuff down so we can get to the fun stuff. I think touching on what you said as well with the 1 to 2 skills at a time, that's exactly right. But I think a lot of times players take this so literally. They're like, oh, so that means I can only work on, layups coming from the left wing with my left hand. That's the only thing I can do. Like that's a lot of times how they take it. But it's you have to take it in context. So 1 to 2 skills at a time. We might say that one skill is working on our ability to create separation in the mid range. So that might mean that we spend a whole summer working on punches, step backs, inverted drags, like a whole bunch of stuff we can go to at that second level to get into the shot, get into another step back, get into a finish, get into a floater, or just be able to create and then make a play for somebody else. Like that could be one skill. And then our next skill could be shooting. And that could mean catch and shoot threes. That could mean coming off of pin downs. That could mean relocation. Like that could be the skills that we work on. It might seem like it's more than one individual skill, right? It's not just catch and shoot from the corner, right? We might work on some other stuff as well, but we're building that same skill set. So I think a lot of times players need to take that into consideration as well. It's not just like, oh, I can only do, my one skill is going to be, catch and shoot elbow jump shots on the right elbow. Like that's not what that means. You have to take that into consideration when you talk about kind of building those 1 or 2 skills.
Right. And when you talk about players having that mentality of either they're stuck in that mentality where I'm going to just have to be this kind of player, or they get to the point where it gets boring for them. You can see in their body language, like, I don't want to do this anymore. And so when I see that body language, at that point is where I hop in and I do the drill with them. And then we go first to 3, first to 4, let's go. Now we're competitive, and now, don't let me beat you because, you're going to hear it from me. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? So I think that getting that competitive drive and showing them that I'm willing to put in the work on these basic movements with you, I think that's gone a long way. And it opens up the mood, and it kind of just like, all right, I don't have to be so serious about it. And, we don't have to be like awkward silence, like, fuck, kind of
Yeah.
like we're doing the same move over and over. Now we make it fun, and we kind of take a different approach. And I think that I'll continue to keep doing that because I enjoy it myself working on those skills. So
Yeah, yeah. I think that the competitive part of it's huge too. Like with the player that I'm talking about, when we started off, like after the first couple weeks, he's starting to get it a little bit, but you can tell, like you said, like he's starting to be like, oh man, like this is kind of getting repetitive. So you can add different things in. Like we might say, okay, we're gonna do Micahs, and you've got to make 10 in a row, and I'm giving you 1 minute to do it. And if you don't get it, you're running. Or we might say you have a minute to make 15, but you have you have to run across from sideline to sideline for every one that you miss. So there's one right there. Like we'll just make it competitive within for themselves. Like we do like a drill where it was like basically 3 levels of layup. So we start off like right by the block, and we just go 2 steps right into a layup. Then we move back a little bit, sort of in the mid range area. We go 1 dribble into it, and then we start 3-point line, and you get 2 dribbles into it. And
mm,
I say like, okay, you've got a minute at each range to get 8 in a row. And now they're going from like, okay, like I'm doing a drill, and now it's like, okay, now I got to compete. Like now I have to like
yeah,
there's a clock now. I think that alone can not only make it more fun and like more get them into it more, but also like I think it helps them develop more because now there's some pressure. Like
mm-hmm,
there's some actual there's consequences to which in games, if you fail, you lose. So in workouts, practices, adding in situations where they can fail and lose, and there's the pressure of that, I think accelerates the development process as well.
I agree
Yeah.
a ton.
So just kind of to close out, I want to get I want to kind of talk about, I mentioned this earlier, but your whole quicksand mindset thing, your stories
Mm-hmm.
that you post, videos that you post, talking about that. Um, when what do you know what's today for that? Because I know you do them every day and you've done them for a
I believe
while.
it's the 38th.
Okay,
30. It's been 38 days straight. Let me
okay,
actually have the notes on it. Yeah, it's 38 days.
okay.
So
So
today, yeah.
today's 38.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So what was your inspiration for starting that?
The inspiration, let me actually make sure it's 38. Yep, today's going to be day 38. The inspiration behind it, so I'm a huge fan of Russ and Nipsey
Yeah.
Hussle. So Russ, I actually have his book in front of me. It's All in Your Head by Russ.
Okay.
And he's just a lot about confidence, self-belief, just having that passion and going towards your goals, having that mindset of knowing that you're just manifesting, really seeing it ahead of time and then making it happen. And so, even when he had nothing, right, when he had 1,000 plays in 2016, and then now he had 1 billion streams this past year, on Spotify. And so is just seeing people like that say it out loud, and I feel like I have that in me to be able to, that it's just hiding in there, that I wanted to be out there more. And so he posted a video on his story, and he was just talking to the camera, and he was approaching a conversation about people saying that he comes off as arrogant, and he was just talking about how he felt about it. And I was like, you know what, today's day one of what I'm gonna do the same thing he just did, because I love that style, I love the mentality. And so from there, the quicksand mindset, I'm a huge fan of Kobe, and so the Mamba mentality, I was like, let me figure out what makes sense for me. Quicksand is quicksand because I'm quick on my feet and all that stuff, and then Sandoval. So that's there. I don't want to do quicksand mentality because that's just taking Kobe's thing. Let me have a mindset. Let me have something that people can take away from me, right? Because I don't want to just be known as a hooper, a basketball player. I want to leave a legacy behind that tells people, hey, he was on a different level than just basketball, right? He's trying to get people mentally prepared for life. We all have those ups and downs, how to attack it, and how to remain confident and stay focused and have that self-belief and not worry about what other people are telling you or doubting your dreams. And like that. So that's kind of what the quicksand mindset is become, and those quick talks that I do every day, and I'm gonna continue to do them. And also another inspiration is Gary V. So
Mm-hmm.
he has something called the Daily V, right? I'm pretty sure it's called Daily V, and he's been doing that forever. And I'm like, this works, right? It just works. Being able to talk to people, whether or not people interact with it or not. Hopefully people are listening to it, because I get people that tell me, I love what you're doing. Keep doing it, out of the blue, that haven't talked to you in a while, right? And so I love that. And so
Yeah.
now I'm kind of building, I'm building that I'm building that mindset that people can just have and carry with them. And they
Yeah.
can know, hey, I know if I need to talk to somebody, I can hit up Gabe. I know that he's on the right path. And that way, when parents see me posting this stuff on my Instagram, they're like, okay, I want my kid to be like that. I want him to work with Gabe. So that way he can be more than just a basketball player for Joshua and Mateo and, the players that I work with.
Yeah.
And I'm working on changing the logo around and changing the name. I want mindset to be a part of this, so I want
Mm-hmm.
it to be quicksand mindset, and I want to add all my inspirations. Like, music is a huge part of my life, and just growing up listening to hip-hop and how it's changed my perspective on life, and seeing what people have dealt with and how they use music to be able to get their mind across, like that. And so weightlifting is going to be a part of it, basketball. And I don't know, I had to figure out how to structure it, but I want people to know that I'm not just a basketball player, a basketball trainer, and I have a lot more to offer. So
Yeah. Yeah. No, I like how you brought that up too. We can talk a little bit after this too, because I have a lot of stuff that actually, just talking to you now, like, for you moving forward, I feel like you really, like, there's a lot of opportunity, I think, for you, because I think your approach is really, really good. I think your approach is right. And I think it's really like the modern approach. Like, I think the kind of old way of doing things, like, as social media continues to evolve, there's more and more people that are becoming trainers or posting stuff, whatever. And now the biggest thing is, like, you have to be able to separate yourself, because you have to be good. Like, you have to know what you're talking about. Because if you can't do that, you'll fall into the sea of all the other people who are trying to do the same thing.
mm,
And you also don't want to be a guy who tries to fit in with people, because, again, like, there's so many people out there. If you just try and be another kind of carbon copy of somebody else, then it's just not going to work for you. Like, it just ultimately, like, people who are, like, authentic, people who are real, those are the ones who are going to grow and are going to last. So there's a lot of things, I think, with you, especially like the weightlifting side of things. Like, I think you have a real opportunity to kind of be able to mesh that stuff together, like you're already doing. And I think that is, because that's a big thing. Like, players, like, that's a big need right now. Like, I get so many questions about it. And honestly, I'm gonna get more into that stuff. But, like, that's such a big thing, and I think it's a need that players could have filled. But
mm,
you're like you're saying, like, kind of molding all of your inspiration, all the things you do into something like that's going to set you apart and keep you unique. And I think that's what you want to do, because my thing is always, like, everything that I post, like, every video I post, every podcast that I do, every Instagram post, like, I'm trying to deliver as much value as possible, even if that person never buys a program, never books a session. Like, there's so many channels out there. If I don't give my best to it, someone will watch me one time and then they'll go find one of the other 10,000 channels out there. But if they see what I do, like, man, that was really, really good. Well, now I've gained somebody who's going to watch more of my stuff, and I can impact them more. And then in turn, they're going to go impact more people. I think we as creators have so much power, because how we interact with somebody, right? You post one of your quick talks, that changes somebody's mindset. That person knows how many people, right? They go, and that
mm.
affects somebody else. That affects somebody else. Like, we have such an ability to be able to affect people. And that all starts with just being authentic, being real. And that's a big thing right there.
I mean, that's well said. That's honestly exactly the mindset that I had behind it. And I actually touched on that on, I don't know, I think it was like day 35 or something like that, where all you need to do is reach one person. I think I think it was Kendrick. He said the rule of the day: get a view every day. Rule of the day: get a view every day. And then I was just like, yeah, all you need is one person, because that one person knows a ton of other people.
Mm-hmm.
right? And so, I think there's a lot of value in that, and that's why I'll continue to keep doing it. But I think my thing is I'm so excited because I have a lot of really good stuff to offer with basketball and weights and outside of basketball, but I just need to be seen. I feel like I'm not seen yet, and people don't know about me.
Yeah.
But when they do, I feel like they'll be satisfied, and I'll keep working my hardest for sure to continue to get better. So I'm
Yeah.
excited for it.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I think that's the thing. If your priority is just like, what can I do to benefit my players, like my guys who watch
Mhm.
me, if that is your number one priority with everything you do, like at everything that you do before you post something, whatever, like you ask, like, is this with my players at the forefront? Like, is that what this is about? And if you're able to say yes to that, then like you're gonna succeed long term. Like even if it's slow growth at first, like, for me, like I've had a lot of growth over the past 2 months. But like building the baseline, and I think as I've gotten even more player focused over the past couple months, like I've seen the increase with that. And I think it just goes hand in hand. Like the more that you give, the more you receive. That's kind of the rule that I've learned over this entire thing. And I think that's something that I'm going to keep on preaching. And that, again, I appreciate what you do as well, because I think that is going to have a long term effect. And it's good to see people who like care about doing that.
Mm-hmm.
So, man, Gabe, I appreciate you hopping on today. Chopping it up a little bit. A lot of really, really great points that I can't wait to go back and watch this again.
Yeah.
And this will be up in a couple of days, but man, it was really great to get to kind of peek into what you do. Again, have your ability to come in and now I have another guy to be able to learn from, and again, that's how we move forward. Like, we got to make each other better. That's what we all got to be able to do with each other. And I think that's one of the
Absolutely.
powerful things about these conversations. So just real quick, give guys, your kind of your Instagram, whatever else you're doing, YouTube, all that sort of stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So my Instagram is Quicksand Hoops, and when the logo changes, it's going to change to probably Quicksand Mindset. My my YouTube is Gabe Quicksand, also Quicksand Hoops. And from there, actually, yesterday I recorded my first vlog. So I'm gonna start posting vlogs on there about my training sessions. And so I'm really stressed about getting all that together, but I'm gonna have some vlogs hopefully up on YouTube, and that way I can start that journey on there. So Quicksand Hoops on both platforms, Gabe Quicksand, either one, you can find me there.
Okay, gotcha. And I'll have all those links in the podcast description and YouTube as well. So all you guys
For sure.
listening, go check out Quicksand Hoops, okay, Quicksand Mindset, all that stuff below. Again, like the just even if you just see his stories every day, like I'm telling you,
Mm-hmm.
that alone is worth that. So go ahead and do that. Gabe, like I said, appreciate you being on. And of course, all you guys listening right now, Apple Podcast, Spotify. If you're on podcast, go ahead and drop a review if you enjoyed this episode. Really would appreciate that. YouTube, like, subscribe. Like I said, check out my guy Gabe. All those links in the description below. I'll talk to you guys soon. Peace.